I study data storage. And for me, data storage is a really important aspect of our lives that many of us aren't aware of the many infrastructures that work in concert to store the information that we use and rely upon every day. And so I've been really interested in computation and the ways that these information are stored in data centers, and they're remote from us, but we're constantly relying upon them. And I think to be able to imagine the scale of these infrastructures, we really have to have a sort of maybe science fictional sensibility, right? Because there are so many of these data centers, they're all over the world, and they are places that are almost like warehouses filled with computers. And most of the public, the general public, doesn't really understand how they work. And I think that it's easy for most of us to think that the system of data storage that we have today is very efficient or represents sort of the pinnacle of what came before in human history. But if you really compare digital data storage through something like a solid state drive, and you compare that to earlier forms of storage, analog storage systems, like even cuneiform tablets that were these tablets of clay that with reed stylus, these tax ledgers were etched, about 6,000 years ago, right? We can still read those. Meanwhile, the solid state drive that you have, or the HDD drive, will start to decay through a process known as bit rot within a decade or even sooner. And so by these measures, by measures of human history, the digital storage system is actually not very durable. It's actually incredibly fragile. And so there's this interest to explore something different, something more sustainable perhaps, based on a completely different technological infrastructure. And one of those options kind of resembles these cuneiform tablets of the Sumerians or Mesopotamians. And it's a kind of ceramic or glass-based storage system that involves a kind of 5D laser-etched matrix of some kind that would be able to store data with thousands of more times of magnitude of density, but also that would actually be able to last for tens of thousands of years. And another alternative that is being explored is molecules as a form of information storage. And so the basic inspiration for this is life itself, right? Life being a 4 billion-year-old concept, proof of concept of an information storage ecology, right? So in our cells, we have these proteins, these DNA strands that are actually encoding information. And this is very durable compared to even, a digital drive. And so there are technologists that are exploring a synthetic DNA that could be a storage system, and others who are experimenting even further and more radically to say, can we actually put information, store data in living cells and living tissues? And so there's this really interesting project called Grow Your Own Cloud, where they are exploring the possibility of turning a living plant into a hard drive. And so these are just some of the possibilities for what lies ahead. And the stakes couldn't be higher with the challenges that we're facing today regarding climate change. And what will be the storage system of the future? I think that's a question that we really need to answer sooner rather than later. There is an environmental cost to all of this, right? And it's also a political cost insofar as the working conditions of the people who assemble these devices and procure the minerals and resources to make them, and so on. And so it's incredibly important for us to think differently about how we're doing this, because these data centers and the industry that has run them has, for up until very recently, has largely self-regulated. So it strikes me as incredibly important for us to develop robust regulation and to think about novel technologies that might be used to maybe store information more efficiently, and new kinds of designs. So not only the technological, but also the practices as well, like how are the data centers run? Human beings run these places. And so the behavior of those human beings can be modified. It is not natural, it is not destiny. Design is not destiny.